Hi guys, welcome to our channel. This is Cheryl. Many online stylists think pricing a product is probably the hardest thing to do. Well, do you know how important pricing is? Pricing researchers have found that the most effective way for a business to achieve the maximum profit is to price it right. In this video, we'll dive into the pricing strategy. You can not only learn how to calculate profits, but also how to determine the optimal price. We'll go into details of the 3 most common pricing strategies and 4 psychological pricing tactics that work for most retail businesses. How to calculate profits. Typically, your profit is equal to sales revenue subtract the costs. To maximize profits, you can increase the sales revenue or reduce the costs. The sales revenue equals price multiplies sales volume, so you need to either increase the price or sales volume to achieve the goal. What's more, running a dropshipping business, you should take into account all the costs to set the right price, including the product costs, marketing expenses, transaction fees, and so on. How to determine the optimal price? First of all, you need to understand the law of demand. This is the demand curve. As we can see, the higher the price, the fewer the purchases. If you decrease your margin by 50%, you have to sell 100% more units to earn the same profits. Can you do this? Knowing the demand elasticity of your product is also important for you to figure out the profits maximizing price. Here's the formula that you can use to measure the elasticity of consumers' demand for products to a change in price. There are 3 traditional approaches to pricing that every online seller should know. Number 1, cost-based pricing. This is the most common pricing strategy. Just add a markup to the cost of a product to arrive at the sales price. Make sure that you can get a margin of at least 25% on each unit sold. Apply this strategy, and you can easily achieve financial prudence. Number 2, competition-based pricing. Competition-based pricing often causes a price war. The pricing strategy uses your competitors' prices as a benchmark instead of setting a price based on the cost or the value perceived by customers. To do this, you have to identify a few competitors and learn what prices they are charging. You also have to decide whether to match the prices of your competition or differentiate your product in the market. Number 3, customer-based pricing. Customer-based pricing means considering customers' perception of product value. It gives customers the impression that they are important. When buying a product or service, customers prefer the one which offers the highest net value, generally for a given product category. Customers' willingness to pay depends on the product's feature, quality, performance, etc. What's more, when cheaper alternatives are available, customers' willingness to pay tends to be lower. Now let's move on to pricing psychology. Pricing psychology involves the study of consumers' perception of price to affect their behavior. In fact, both the perception of value and the perception of price are subject to many psychological influences. 4 timeless psychological pricing tactics. How to encourage people to spend more than they intended. Here are 4 main psychological pricing tactics that work for retail stores. You can apply them to effectively increase sales. Number 1, time limit. Sounds like one day only acts as catalyst for consumers to spend. This is because these sounds make them believe that the sales are only temporary and they should buy today to avoid missing out on such a great opportunity. This is why many people spend a lot on Prime Day and Black Friday. Number 2, charm pricing. Charm pricing is about ending prices with 9. Since we read from left to right, when we look at the price $1.99, we perceive it to be closer to $1 than $2. In essence, it convinces customers that you are providing a great deal. If the original price of a product is $200, You may try to sell it at $199 to see whether it helps to make a difference to your sales. Number 3. Innumeracy. According to a study, even though buy one and get one free and 50% off for 2 items are the same, most people prefer the first option. It is quite common that consumers are unable to understand the basic math principles in everyday life. That is to say, tricks such as double discounting, coupon design, and percentage pumping work well, and they make consumers believe they are getting good deals. Number 4. Price appearance. This is about the visual design of your prices. Make them in a smaller form and don't add zeros at the end. The reason is that longer prices appear to be more expensive than shorter ones. If you are pricing at a whole number, omit 0.00 at the end. To combine this tactic with charm pricing, consider making 0.99 much smaller than the main price. Companies focusing on price management are more profitable than those focusing simply on the cost management. Guys, these are the basics of pricing. I highly recommend you to focus on price management from now on. If you like this video, we'd really appreciate it if you hit the like button below, subscribe and turn on notification to get more useful tips from us. See you next time!